Everyone, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development, your host for Sales and Cigars. So today we got an interesting episode. My guest is Daniel Hooberry. Daniel's an interesting character. We don't get into his full background, but just what he's created in his life. He's taken an old trolley, streetcar, and converted it into a smoking lounge. And due to some other circumstances, he doesn't drive it around much. He's got it parked at his residence, and he's got this Edwardian cigar lounge where people can come. He only sells boutique cigars, BYOB. Cool. It's cool. Like, we get a chance to take a look at it a little bit, have a conversation. The man's wears a top hat, a little ascot or a cabat. Interesting conversation. Interesting man. Go grab a cigar. Go grab a cocktail. Strap in for another fun episode of Sales and Cigars. Thanks. Daniel, I really appreciate you taking some time to jump on the podcast today. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me on here. I mean, it's part of what we do in the cigar world and stuff is talk to people. So, and I'm bringing back that talking to people aspect in my business. So
that's one of the cool things about cigars, right? Is I've been to different places in the country, outside of the country. And if you go sit down someplace with a cigar and another person comes along with a cigar, there's this instant camaraderie. You have something in common. Exactly.
Yeah, it just brings you together all of a sudden because, I want to know what type of cigar you've got. You want to know what type of cigar I've got. Like, I'm smoking a BTC Better Than Cuban right now. It is a all Cuban tobacco cigar rolled in Dominican Republic, which makes it a Dominican cigar.
Yep.
All of a sudden, and they can sell it in the United States.
Interesting how the rules work, right?
Yeah.
But
for every law, there's a loophole on it. So
if not more. So I mean, I just think that the whole idea of a cigar, it can be solitude, right? You can have what I call a contemplative cigar, where you just kind of go to the chair and maybe you have a notebook, or maybe you're just thinking about something and working through a problem or working through a creative space. But the other aspect of it is it's totally social. And it doesn't matter where people are from per se. It's like you're bonded by that little stick of totobacco.
Yeah, like, today, this is my lunchtime and everything, and I'm having soup and salad. We've got, all leafy, product here, and, a soup here made out of, fresh beans and everything, oily beans from, South America.
Yep. Or it could be grains from the middle of America. Some rye or some, corn in that's been distilled properly for another soup. So let's talk a little bit, because we had a mutual associate friend, pair who's been a guest on the podcast, suggested I talk to you because of your business. So can you kind of tee up, your, I'm going to call it trolley. Can you kind of share what you've created, and how and why? I'm just going to sit here and listen.
Okay. I was looking at getting back into the cigar business after about a 20-year not being in that type of business. And I was like, what do I want to do? I thought about renting a shop and different things like that and having that, and then COVID hit. When COVID hit, I was just like, okay, if I had rented this shop, I would have been having to have, monthly payments going into that shop that I couldn't use. So it was a good thing that I had not actually rented the shop at that time.
Right.
And I was like, what else, how else would I want to do this? And I looked at like box trailers and, a bunch of different things like that to make a mobile shop out of. And then I was like, that doesn't suit me. That's not who I am. And eventually I was there. I go, my great grandfather was part of the Nashville Light and Rail, which was the trolley cars back in the early 1900s,
Okay.
late 1800s. And I was like, let's bring my family, my history of my family into my business. So I bought a old trolley bus and made it into a Edwardian smoke shop.
Nice.
So that, people can come in here. I've got a shoe shine booth here that I can shine their shoes for them. I've got a old steamer trunk over here that has all types of glassware in it and everything, depending on what you're drinking. You BYOB your drink in here.
Sure.
And, you bring whatever you want to drink. I've got a glass for you and everything.
You got a humidor in?
I have a humidor up front. That is.
There it is. Okay, I see it.
What's right. Well, I can't point. How do I point? It's right behind me right there.
Yep. In the corner.
Yeah. It's one of the first things that you see when you walk in the door. So, and the trolley bus was originally, part of what I had designed to be where I could go out and meet the public. I could be out at their events and stuff.
I'm gonna interrupt with a question. Where did you acquire the trolley bus? How did you find one that was available?
Like I said, it was during COVID. It was right at the start of it and everything. And I looked online and everything, and I found one like in Atlanta. This guy was, selling. I'd already worked out a deal with him. When I got down there, it wasn't the trolley he had sent me pictures of.
Not cool.
That old switch and bait, thing, And I walked away from that one. And then I came back to Nashville and, back to Shelbyville area where I live at, and found out that this guy had bought a trolley bus to totally redo for his wedding events and all that type of stuff in Nashville. He had like the tour bus type things and stuff like that he was already doing. He already had one trolley that he had already totally redone. And this one was in shambles. There was, all the wood was stripped out of it. You're looking at sheet metal on the outside of the trolley when you looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
And, it needed paint job. It needed everything. Well, the engine and transmission and everything was in good condition. All the drivetrain, the framework was in, good condition. So I bought the trolley from him because he was winding up being put out of business because all of his tour business and all that stuff was immediately shut down.
Yeah.
And, I bought this one for a little of nothing really for what it was. And, he brought it to the house for me because I'd never driven anything this big before, in a bus type thing. I'd driven U-Haul trucks and things like that, but, motorhomes, but this,
How long is it?
It's about 32 feet long. It's got 270 square feet of area inside the trolley here. So
bigger than some apartments in New York.
eight leather chairs in here that you can sit in, smoke your cigars, have a good conversation. I have my personal Wi-Fi in here right now, so I can talk to you. But when customers come in, I sort of make it to where they have to talk to each other.
Yeah. I was going to ask about that because every once in a while in a smaller town, you'll see a little sign outside of a coffee shop like no Wi-Fi, talk to your friends. And I was going to ask if that's that's a great little policy to have so that people have to engage with each other.
Well, that's what the Edwardian smoke shop is all about. You got in, you talked about politics, you talked about business, you talked about, everything that was of matter at the time. And, what a lot of people don't understand is back in those days, if I was a bum on the street that had a little stub of a cigar, but I didn't have any matches, I might come up to you and ask you for a light. And you would obligatory give me a light for my, cigar and everything, because that's what people did back then. And I'm trying to bring that back to where people can understand that we don't have to be total jerks to everybody around us.
That's a lot.
And that's what you get. That's what you get in the cigar shop, is that you've got a bunch of guys that have passions that they, boil up inside them and everything that they want to, tell other people about, but they never get a chance to actually talk about it in the real world.
I've visited cigar shops around, and it's all, if I go to a town, I always seek out, the cool cigar shop in town. And it's always a similar group of characters, right? They're all good people, but when you walk in, they all give you the eyeball, right? Like, hey, what's this guy? We haven't seen him before. But they don't make you feel uncomfortable. They kind of ask some questions, where are you from? What you doing? How are you enjoying our town? Right. But they know you're there for a cigar. And as soon as you tell them that you're looking for a drone or a punch or, whatever it is that you're looking for, they have something to relate to you, and there's a conversation, right? Like we said before. And so you're trying to get people to recognize that we're all humans. We have that in common. We're all on the same planet. We're all trying to get along. So, and your vehicle is literally a vehicle, a trolley and cigars, and they bring their own beverages with them. That's kind of a great.
And I deal all boutique cigars. A lot of people may not understand what I mean by boutique. They're the guys that are sitting there. They're starting up new companies. They've had companies for years, but they have a lot of passion about their cigar, and they want that cigar to be right. They may not be making, 1 million cigars a month, like some of these companies may be. They're making, a few thousand cigars every month.
Something that they're proud to put their name on, something they enjoy to smoke, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And, it's just like with me. I only bring in cigars that I would sit down and smoke myself. Because if I won't smoke it, how am I going to sell it to you?
What do you enjoy? What bold, medium?
I'm pretty much a full-body cigar smoker.
Okay.
But I've been leaning towards some medium smokes here recently, because I found some of those that were just dynamite smokes and stuff that I ventured toward. But my normal smoke, if I'm going to grab one just for pleasure, and it's not something that I'm doing.
Your everyday cigar.
I'm sitting. It's a full body cigar. What a lot of people say, we'll put them on the ground or something like that.
Yeah, I have to be in the right frame of mind for a full-bodied cigar. Because they do kick my butt if I'm not careful, especially if it's got a lot of ligero in it. It can get me. Even I've been smoking cigars for a long time. I like that in between.
When did you start smoking?
Well, I say a long time, but 1992.
Okay.
As my wife calls it, I developed two bad habits the same summer: golf and cigars. So
Well, have a good back surgery, and that'll get rid of one of those for you.
I haven't played golf in 3 years because of the some shoulder surgeries that have caused me not to be able to swing. But I don't know how I found the time for it, frankly. And to me, it was about being outside, getting a little bit of fresh air and exercise, but mostly about being with some friends.
Yeah.
And enjoying a cocktail, enjoying an afternoon, and a couple of cigars was usually the course of action. But again, social, right? Just being able to have a conversation about we used to call it. I had a friend who referred to it as, well, let's just go grab a drink and a cigar and talk smart, right? That was how he positioned it, right? We're gonna go solve the world's problems with two knuckleheads sitting around having a bourbon and a cigar. And at the end of the day, we felt better because we shared our thoughts with somebody that was actually listening. I don't think we solved any world problems, but we enjoyed it.
Well, you may have solved them, but neither one of you wrote it down, so you got to start from scratch again next time.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the modus operandi there. The process. You just got to keep doing it until somebody's smart enough to write it down. That's frankly how we started this podcast. Was a friend of mine and I were sitting at a table in Florida outside, beautiful afternoon, smoking cigars, having a few cocktails. And he looked at me and goes, we should be recording this because we're entertaining and we've said some really smart stuff and we're really funny. And I don't know that I agree with everything he said, but that's how this started was how can I have a conversation with somebody on a regular basis, get to know them, and just share these ideas with other people. So to your point earlier, they are being recorded. I don't know how much wisdom has come out of these in the last 67 episodes, but I'm having fun, and that was the first priority, was to have fun.
Yeah, if you can't have fun, why are you doing it?
Exactly. Correct.
I know guys that or people, not just men, but people in general, that are they're unhappy with their life situation, being married or not being married or whatever, and their job and all that stuff. Well, why are you doing those things that make you unhappy? If your marriage is making you that unhappy, get out of it, or and do yourself and do your partner a favor,
or fix it.
Because if it's making you that unhappy, I'm pretty sure you're making them unhappy too.
Right.
And same way with the work. Every time I ever took a job and I say I was working for you and I accepted the amount of pay that you're willing to give me. And I had a man tell me this at one time, and it stuck with me. When you can no longer do the job for that pay in good conscience, and you're slacking on your job or doing your job not at your best ability, do yourself a favor and do the man a favor and get yourself another job.
Yep. Good advice.
So
it's
and I lived by that for years.
Life is too short to. I mean, we all do things we don't like to do. It's part of life. But if you're doing something that takes up a lot of your time, or is having a huge impact on you, you really need to take a look at it. And you might not be able to fix it immediately, but there's little things that you can do every day to start to make that change to get yourself into a better situation. And I think, this is part of one of those conversations that probably take place in your trolley. And that if we got back to, and I'm not saying generation's bad or that they're not as good as the generations before us, but
we weren't as good as the generation before us. And, they weren't as good as the generation before them. It's it all stems to, your perspective. What are these kids doing nowadays with their life? They just want to sit around and, do this. Well, our parents said that about us. And their parents said that about them. What are they doing in their life? They're listening to rock and roll music all of a sudden. Things like that.
Yeah.
And, when it comes down to that little bit of knowledge, those kids have knowledge that I do not have, that I need to listen to, because this is about sales as well as cigars.
right.
They understand marketing and stuff almost naturally. A lot of them do. They on how to get on, do all these different websites and doing all that type of stuff on the internet that I do not understand at all. I'm winging it every day that I, get out there. But they can sit there and they can just go through it and, do something. It's like, I'm having trouble firing my employee because I'm a solopreneur and I'm the only employee I've got.
Yeah, it makes it hard. But I think that speaks to the point where, that generation and the other generation, right? Pick a generation, it doesn't matter. If they could sit down and have a conversation about what one generation knows that the other one doesn't, and literally share those ideas, it would make a huge difference in how we view each other and put value on each other. I had the privilege of knowing my great grandmother. My great grandparents were like my grandparents, and obviously my grandmother, my mother. And I had to do a paper when I was in junior high school, and it was about the Depression. And I'm like, I'm supposed to research and write a paper. And my mother was like, well, your grandfather lived it. Why don't you go talk to him? So I called him and said, hey, I got to do this. Would you mind? And he's like, no, come on up to the barbershop and, ask me whatever you want. So my bibliography for that paper was one guy. It was my grandfather. I just listed him as the sole source of, and, I substantiated it by that he lived through the entire thing as a young man and, kind of grew up in it. So, I learned to respect some of his grumpiness, some of his idiosyncrasies about how, you had to do something a certain way because it saved material or saved water or money, right? And that's just how he grew up, because that's what he had to do. So I think if more people sat around with a cigar and talked about those things generationally, we all would be much better off because we all would learn something, right? It's inevitable.
Well, it's like my father was, First World War. I mean, Second World War. Is when he was in the military, and I remember, he was right past the Depression when he was born and stuff. So, but I remember him because of the things that happened during the Depression. Like if he pulled a bolt out of something or a nail or something like that, it didn't matter whether that nail looked like that. He straightened it out the best he could, and it went in a jar.
Yep. That's what I'm
and
talking
everything
about.
because they saved everything to reuse it again. People think oh well they're repurposing things. Like I repurposed a lot of stuff in this trolley. Like the legs that are on my tables and everything are the actual slats that were on the benches before.
Oh, cool.
And the where I built over the top of the wheel well so I could set my chair and my shoe shine chair and the drink station.
Yep.
That's all those old slats and everything that I
Repurpose.
sanded them all down, painted about half of them, and gave it a little bit of design there.
How long did that take you to rebuild that from a shell to what?
It took me every day for about 10 months.
Wow. Labor of love.
To totally rebuild this trolley out to what it looks like today. And it's got a lot of flaws with it, but don't we all?
Scars? Absolutely. So talk to me about here as we start to wrap up what you're finding with the community, because you're outside of Nashville, right?
Right. I'm literally 12 minutes away from Uncle Near's distillery.
Okay. I know where that is.
That's where I'm at. In about 35 minutes from Jack Daniel's and about 25 minutes from George Dickel. So it's
in the heart.
We might have some Tennessee whiskey around here or some bourbon or something. If it comes up necessary, might be able to get a hold of some.
Might be able to scrounge some up.
I could not drink personally because of medical issues.
Sure.
I can't have anything that thins out my blood. But and that that was one of those type things where when the doctor told me that last fall, I loved my port. One glass of port with a good cigar.
Oh,
and I can't have that anymore.
Wow, that's an adjustment, but
yeah, the community here is just now accepting the fact that I'm here.
Okay.
I've lived in, they accepted me years ago, but the fact that I've got the trolley out here and everything on my property and stuff, and they can just, drive down the road and everything and pull in, and they're just now understanding that that's what it's there for.
So you're not doing a lot of marketing and advertising of that. It's the word of mouth thing, basically.
Some of it's word of mouth. I've put up signs and everything now. I've got them out that are directional signs on how to get here, off the highways and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And, because I've got 41A runs on one side and then 231 goes into Shelbyville on the other side. They sort of, and I'm in between, about halfway in between those two. So, I direct people out here with those signs, from all the different streets.
Have you made any connections with, seems like there would be people in Nashville looking to spend an afternoon outside of Nashville while the spouse is going shopping or something, and you'd offer them a little respite to, go have a cigar and a
Yeah.
conversation.
Well, like I've put up, knife and axe throwing targets out here. I'm going to be, setting up eventually with a large yard chessboard
Oh, yeah.
that you'll be able to play chess out there. Things like that I'm going to be putting out in the yard so that, you've got things to do while you're here besides just doing that. I like my knives and stuff like that. So, I've got my wasp swatter here that I use for swatting wasps.
Nice. Break them into two. Well, I mean, that's. I'm just trying to figure out how to help you get the word out. If somebody was going down to visit Nashville.
Well, if they're on Instagram, look up Gentlemen's MENS _ cigars with an S, and that'll show it, that you'll be able to, if you go all the way back through my pictures, you'll be able to sort of have a where I took pictures almost every day of the build out that I was doing of the trolley and different things like that. I opened the trolley up originally on April 1st of 2021, and that I figured that was the most apropos day to open up a business during COVID.
Yeah, there's some irony in that. Absolutely. So it's Gentlemen's _ cigars. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll have that in
Gentlemen's
Gentlemen.
MENS.
Yep. All right, on Instagram.
_ cigars with an S.
So I'll have that in the show notes when we drop this, so that any of the listeners that are heading to Nashville for a conference, a game, just Nashville's a cool town. Great food, great people.
Well, you're asking me about advertising and everything. I'm looking at it, doing advertising with Nashville Village Golf course and stuff like that down in Nashville. Thursday, I'm doing an event in Nashville at the Nashville Gun Club where they do skeet shooting and all that type of stuff down there.
Those are great ideas. Yeah.
And just different people like that have contacted me and want me to, be part of their
experience.
The people they use and stuff.
That's great. Those are the kind of things that are going to help you fill those 8 chairs on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
That's I love the story. I appreciate you taking the time. I love the hat. Is it called an ascot? Is that the proper terminology for
ascot or cavat?
Cavat?
CAVAT.
Got it. All right. What's the difference? Is it just nomenclature, or is it
nomenclature on part of it? There is a little bit of difference in between the style of them. An ascot, the tie is not as wide here. It comes down a little bit. It sort of makes more of a loop right there.
Yep.
When you tie it, and then it comes out into the tie to do it.
Yours looks like
this one is a little bit wider.
Yeah, it looks like it's got a little bit more girth to it. Little bigger. Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool.
But I've got a little bit more girth to me too. So.
Touche. All right, Daniel. I really appreciate you taking some time. Great story. And the cigar you're smoking is a BTC. Better than a Cuban.
It's better than Cuban. It is all natural Cuban tobacco rolled in the Dominican Republic, which makes it a Dominican cigar. It's a young couple, and Banff Cigars. I know you're trying to keep this as BA or MF Cigars company is the one that makes it for them.
Okay, got it.
And you know, if you haven't heard of them and everything, their logo, which I just happen to have.
Oh, like it. Badass motherfuckers. Got it. I like it.
Okay, I wasn't going to say that on your show, but if you say it, that's up to you.
Yeah, my producer may decide to beep that out. I don't really care. This is, if somebody's offended by cigars, they won't be listening. If somebody's offended by that, they probably wouldn't be listening either. So, and they probably shouldn't in the future. So, I'm going to look that up because that sounds like a nice nice stick to try, because I'm always looking for something different. So, again,
Yeah. If you're interested in any boutique cigars and everything, just give me a holler. Use my email, send me an email, and I will hook you up to some good boutique cigars.
All right, sir. On that note, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on here.
To get your copy of Walter Crosby's new book, The 7 Critical Mistakes CEOs Make with Their Sales Organization That Stop the Company from Scaling, follow the link in the show notes or go to Amazon.com. Thank you for listening to Sales and Cigars with Walter Crosby of Helix Sales Development. For more on Sales and Cigars, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Sales and Cigars, produced by thepodcastproshop.com.